So hi everybody and welcome back to the C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 271 and in this video we continue with our exercises, and now we are on here 4, and I want again that you pause the video, try to answer this question as good as you can, and then start the video again and compare it with my answer. But of course my answer is also not perfect, and that's why you should go after this to our CPB reference site and try to find the constructors and compare it with this sign, because this is our goal, that you understand this site here, and here is every definition and later the original paper. With that said, let's read here the question. It says here, create different kind of constructors in a class. I want that you just remember all the different kind of constructors which we talked to so far, and then try to make examples, so because you should get a little bit practice, and then compare it with mine. So you can stop here the video, and of course I will not stop and jump into my questions. And here is my, so you can see I have here a class, just I copied from top the house class, and here I have constructors. And here I just listed them for demonstration purposes. This class is probably not working, but I hope you will see it. First of all, what we are doing now is I will highlight every constructor, and before I explain what this constructor is, I want that you explain what I did here and compare it with your own if you have one of these constructors as well. So let's get started. So what is this kind of constructor here? And the answer is, it is a constructor with a parameter and an initializer list here. Okay, and we have a definition. So why I say we have a definition? Because we can make it just a declaration as well. How we make a declaration? For example, I put this away. This would be a constructor declaration. And important is, when I have a declaration, you have still to specify it, with other words, to define it. And you can define it outside. How you can define this now outside? And that's very important. Let's put this one back. Don't get irritated by this one. If you define this outside, this one is not part of the signature, which means the declaration is just this one here. So don't make the mistake, just say this one is the declaration. That will not work. Oops, that will not work, because the declaration is just, yeah, that will also not work. The declaration is just this part here. All right, this one is our declaration. And if you have something like that, outside would be this one here. You can see the thing here is this initializer list. This you can put outside, or you have to put outside, because here it's not allowed. That's very important here. And important as well is, when you define it outside, don't forget : house, because you have to specify where to find this constructor here. You say it's in house, and then with this : all right, so far so easy. I hope it's not something very difficult. Let's go to the next one, the default here. What is that? And the answer is, we already talked about it. This one is a default constructor, but we as a programmer have made this special defaulted. And the reason why we as a programmer make this special defaulted, because we want use, for example, this constructor and this default constructor at the same time, because we already know we can create another way a default constructor, which is, for example, this one. But if you are doing this one here and this one here, I mean, that will work also. But let's say if you want that the compiler is creating a default constructor, we know this one as well, because we can call here at this line, let the compiler create a default constructor for us, which means we are providing no default constructor at all, which means if I don't provide this default constructor, normally the compiler would provide one, but in our case it would not provide one, because we already have defined a constructor. That's why we made what? We made this one here. We set default constructor, and now when you provide this one here with this here, then you can create an object with the non-default constructor, that would be this one here, and with the default constructor, that would this second here without parameters, for example. This is that. Let's go on implicit constructor. I just explained what is the implicit constructor again. This is the constructor when you provide nothing for, let's say this class is empty, and we know even if this class would be have no constructor, the compiler would try to provide us a default constructor. All right. And if you have then something like that, then of course this one will not work because we have not provided the constructor. All right, but that was easy. Let's go on to this one. We just discussed this. This is also a default constructor which we provided. The only difference here is we can of course use here the body to initialize, or we can also use here the initializer list if you want, like the other one. Here's the house number, and then initialize it with you can write any number in it, or yeah, because we have no parameter here, you can say initialize it with a default value, let's say 45, and then you have this one. This will work as well if you like. And let's go to the next line. What is that? And the answer is this one is, careful, look, this one here, you have to see this one here to answer this one. It is a delegate. What means a delegate again? A delegate constructor is calling another constructor, and you can see it. We have here the house constructor, it's just a parameter constructor, okay? And then it tries to call another constructor here, and you can see house 5 would be probably this one here. This is probably a int. The compiler will try then see, oh, this is a house with a int. I will call this one here. Then it will initialize this one. Then it will execute the definition here. And then it will come back to this here and then execute this body here. That was this delegate constructor. And let me open up here fast. I think I have this here anywhere as well. So you can read here this delegate constructor, and very important as well here the parameters. You can see we don't have to use them if we want. For example, I have here in this example just int y, and they are just saying, oh, the other constructor needs a character and an int. So they are providing just a default character value, for example. This is just considered default, and I made the same thing here actually, because here I have a double, and this one is not a double, so that I provide just a default value 5. It will call this one by default 5. It will execute this one here, set this one here on top 5, and then execute the body, and then come back and execute the body from this constructor here. All right, that's okay so far. And let's go a little bit further. Here, what kind of constructor we have here? Again, important is this part here, and it is a derived constructor. We are calling the parent constructor. So with other words, my class here, you can see it's got inheritance, and I inherit from the class parent, and I make a public inheritance. And the class parent, you can see, has a very simple default constructor here. And then here I'm just calling this default constructor from the parent. So this has something to do with inheritance. And then here again we have this word delayed. What is this with delayed? Again, you can specify a constructor not to be used and not to be created implicitly by the compiler by saying delayed this. So, and there are special use cases which we have not discussed. We only know we can delete. Also, like you can set default, you can set delayed constructors, and so on. Let's go here to the side of constructors a little bit. Here we discussed many things, I think. Here is an example which is a little bit difficult, which we have to discuss again because we have not talked about this much in detail. And this example is try to understand the first line here. I think the other ones should be more easy, but the first line is here a little bit difficult. And why is this difficult. Look what happens here. Okay, we see it is calling base. All right. It is just calling this struct base, and then it's initializing it with 1, 2, 3. But wait a minute. It's calling base, but we have no constructor here. And the default constructor, and again, this one here is a little bit, let's say, confusing for us because we have not talked about uniform initialization and aggregate initialization. And the mistake which we can make here is to say, hey, this is probably aggregate initialization, because that will assign this value directly here. But actually this is uniform initialization, and yeah, we will talk about this a little bit more next. And let's see, I hope that you found even more examples than I did here, but I show you here one more thing. It was the default. Okay, that's we have. And yeah, read the constructors again, just to remember all the things. But here in the class section, you can see we have, of course, a little bit more. We have here not talked about this other copy constructor, which we will talk in future, converting constructors and move constructors. So you can see there are much more constructors for different types and different things which we have not talk, but at least we have some of them. You can see we get better and better the more we cover, and yeah, we have still to cover a lot, but I hope so far you did very well. And with that said, if you have any question, then just write it in the comment section again, and see you in the next video. Bye, have fun, good luck, and like all time, never give up.